Good morning, I'm Chris McCarthy. Welcome to this news briefing from the 253rd National Meeting and Exposition of the American Chemical Society in San Francisco. We're joined today by Dr. Nicole A. Horenstein from the University of Florida. She'll be talking about her work on how an addictive nut's derivatives could help smokers break the nicotine habit. Dr. Horenstein?
Thank you, Chris. First, I work in the Department of Chemistry, and I am half of a team, the other half being Dr. Roger Papke in the Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics, also at the University of Florida. He and I have been collaborating together for nearly 20 years now, studying nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. My role in that collaboration is as a chemist. So, the work that we'll be presenting in the poster session and that we're talking about today is, in a way, a tale of two different topics. Ostensibly, I'll be talking about alkaloids from the areca nut, and the areca nut offers some really interesting inroads for possible therapeutic design for smoking cessation. But also the areca nut is widely used in Asia, and it's estimated maybe 600 million people are users of this product with an associated habituation and addiction. So perhaps the alkaloids that are in this nut would serve two purposes: inspiration for development of therapeutics for smoking cessation, and possibly also for cessation of areca use. So if we can take a look at some of the slides we brought. These are four of the major known alkaloids that are found in the areca nut. If you look at their structures, they're relatively simple. My collaborator, Roger Papke, got interested in these compounds because of sort of an odd side hobby, which is looking at bladed weapons, and there was a sword that had an interesting carved handle, and it's likely that the carver was chewing areca nut, and he got interested in asking the question, what are the alkaloids in the nut that might have activity on nicotinic receptors? And looking at these alkaloids on the left, in particular, there's arecaline. Arecaline is unique amongst those major alkaloids in acting at nicotinic receptors in addition to muscarinic receptors. And so this sort of set up the idea that perhaps the nut could serve as an inspiration for the identification of compounds that had the ability to interact with nicotinic receptors that are involved in the addiction cycle. If we take a quick glance to the next figure, the idea here in this cartoon is that using the nut gives the user a dose of muscarinic alkaloids, but also the presence of the arecaline may be involved in the dependence cycle. So you use the drug, and then one gets dependence because you're getting something from the drug that's pleasant. But the alpha-4 containing nicotinic receptors are also thought to be involved in the addiction cycle. There's a parallel then between this and smoking cessation drugs. Compounds like varenicline and cytosine are acting at these receptors. The issue, though, is whether or not we could identify in these nicotinic active compounds a better selectivity profile than, for instance, existing drugs like varenicline might have. So what we'll be talking about or presenting in the poster later tonight is looking at a series of related compounds, including isoarecolone, that show diminished muscarinic activity and enhanced activity at alpha-4 containing nicotinic receptors. And it's an activity profile that's desirable, as I've indicated. We'll show some results where we've been able to all but eliminate muscarinic activity, and we're able to selectively act at alpha-4 containing nicotinic receptors. And that's essentially where we're at right now. We're looking forward to further developing these compounds to enhance the potency of some of the interesting molecules that we've been looking at.
Thank you. Are there any questions? And please wait for the microphone and state your name and affiliation. Thanks. Oh, I think.
I'll keep trying.
There we go. Thanks.
I'll try that again. Ben Valsler from Chemistry World. One thing, could you just clear up? I'm not quite certain whether the muscarinic alkaloids are contributing to the addictive effects, or if we think it's only the nicotine exciters that are doing that.
Well, that might well be, and
Right.
Addiction science really isn't my thing, but there's a reward, I think, from the muscarinic active components, and that certainly contributes to the reinforcement and the addiction. However, smoking therapeutics aren't really aimed at providing that kind of a reward so much as sort of tickling the alpha-4 containing nicotinic receptors.
Thanks. What specifically have you done to modify the arecaline in terms of the structure?
Mm-hmm.
And also, what sort of doses would you need of some of these compounds if they were to be administered to people?
Okay, thank you. Good questions. Arecaline itself is perhaps a big issue. Arecaline is associated with cancer in users of the betel nut, and so we certainly would want to move away from that sort of core structure where there's a lot of, I don't think we know what's actually A to B correlation causing the relationship with cancer, but if you look at the structure, there's electrophilic reactivity in the molecule, unsaturation, alpha-beta unsaturated structure. So we're moving away from that and designing that away and looking at structures that are not really likely to have any electrophilic reactivity. As far as dosing goes, it's really premature to get to that. Obviously, we'd want to have compounds that are sufficiently potent that high doses wouldn't be necessary, but we're at early stages of the research and working on developing more potent compounds before we begin to address that.
We have an online question from Christine Suh, American Chemical Society. She's asking, how are you synthesizing the analogs? Do you start by isolating arecaline from areca nuts and then modify it?
It's a great question, too. We're looking at areca extracts for other compounds, but in terms of what I'll be presenting tonight, we're starting strictly synthetic and not using compounds that have that core electrophilic reactivity that I mentioned in the previous question.
Bela Buslik, American Chemical Society. As I understand, then this particular thing is a model for nicotine, not necessarily something to replace nicotine by and make people quit smoking that way. So, so you're essentially synthesizing analogs that would be perhaps binding to the receptors and then hopefully preventing nicotine action. Mm-hmm. Is it?
Yes. So at a low dosage, and we've got some data to show this, if you can, for lack of a better word, tickle the receptor to have low-level activity, then it's not so much of a reward, but you're not so much experiencing a sense of deprivation for not having nicotine bound to the receptor.
In other words, it's not quite the same as let's say, antabuse for alcohol.
I don't think it's similar, no.
Like you don't really want to have the people get sick if they do use the compound, well, nicotine or whatever.
No, hopefully not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have another.
Yeah, so Katie Cottingham, American Chemical Society. So just wondering, you probably don't have an idea of this, but when could this become a stop smoking treatment? I guess this probably is well in the future.
It is. Starting with basic research, you develop the idea, you do things like enhance potency, and then there's the whole issue of modeling and animal models for addiction, and all of that needs to be done. And we're looking forward to doing it and getting answers, but not yet.
All right. Oh, sorry. One more.
So it's Kath O'Driscoll from Chemistry and Industry magazine. Just to ask if you could say a little bit more about the comparison with these analogues with some of the anti-addiction compounds that are currently available?
Well, right now, I would say that we have some compounds that show very good selectivity for alpha-4 containing receptors. The potency on these simple compounds that we've explored is not yet comparable, and you can see some of that data in the poster. And the current work, in part, is aimed at enhancing that potency while maintaining the selectivity for the desired nicotinic subtype and avoiding muscarinic activity.
Okay. Thank you very much. The archived version of this session will soon be posted at bit.ly/ACSLive_San Francisco. Please join us for our next press conference, which will be today at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, about how green laser light can probe metals for hidden damage. Thank you.